Welcome to the Love Unplugged podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Frigon. You may know me from Project Love, where we focus on operational excellence, but here we go deeper. We're your go-to for raw, empowering conversations on entrepreneurship and stepping into your CEO role with love and confidence. Each week, we'll explore everything from mindset shifts, leadership, optimal wellness, to efficient systems, all within a community of visionary women like you. Ready to get real about building a business and life you love? Hit subscribe and let's start this transformative journey together. Hello, loves. Today I am joined by the incredible Haley Burkhead. Haley, a dynamic force in the entrepreneurial and investment landscape, whose journey from quitting her job to achieving $36,000 months within just 6 months at the young age of 24 is nothing short of inspirational. As the former owner of Recurring Profit, Haley has demonstrated an unparalleled knack for creating and scaling businesses with sustainable revenue models. Beyond her success with Recurring Profit, Haley has carved out a significant niche as a business investor, focusing on empowering women to break through the barriers that have historically limited their financial and entrepreneurial aspirations. Today, Haley stands as the chairman of over 6 businesses, serves on the board of directors for multiple companies, and has made significant strides as a commercial and residential real estate investor in the Fort Worth area. So welcome, Haley. I am so incredibly honored to have you join us on the podcast. I'm so excited to learn more about your story and your expertise. But for those that don't know you yet, I would love for you to share a little bit more about you personally.
Of course. Thank you for having me. And it is so great to be having these conversations on your podcast. Oh my gosh, I started out as a fashion blogger way back in the day, back in 2014, 2015. Well, my blog started in 2011, but I started making money from it. So that's how I paid for college. I would go to Goodwill. I would get those J. Crew tops, the expensive brands, and then I would do affiliate links on my blog. And then I got asked to model for boutiques, and that was my first business. I never really associated that with business, but it just kind of evolved. My college assignments, I was a web design major, and they would give me projects like, you need to go complete a HTML mixed with PHP code website. And so I would go to the local businesses in town and say, hey, I'll build you a website for $2,000. And they'd pay me. And that was be my homework assignment. So that's kind of how I got started. It was almost like just how my brain did its knee-jerk reaction thing. That's kind of how I started my first business back in the day. And now it's evolved to, you heard the bio, it's evolved to all of this, which I'm very grateful for.
That's incredible. Okay, so you've been doing this for quite some time. I mean, the influencer world and blogging and whatnot was very new back then. And I mean, did we even have Instagram back then? I can't even imagine what that must have been like, how it is now to what it started off as. So let's dive a little bit more into where you started off from. Let's start way back at the beginning, before you became an entrepreneur. Was this always your intention? Was it always a dream to start your own business? What were your plans?
No, I wanted to be a physical therapist that lived in Africa. And then I was like, okay, no, I'm going to be a child life specialist major, which was a terrible idea because I am deeply afraid of needles. And it's a lot of cancer work with children. And my fear of anything medical, that was just the least self-awareness I've ever had in my life. That was definitely a low point. And my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband of almost 10 years, we got married at 20. I wasn't even legally allowed to drink yet when we got married. But he said, Haley, you're not happy. I love what I'm doing. I love what I'm studying. And you're just not happy. But you love your fashion blog. Why don't you go all in on that? And so it was more so what was I curious about? What was I passionate about? And instead of putting something in a box and labeling it a business, I didn't even have those labels. I wasn't educated. My parents weren't entrepreneurs. I didn't even know what business was. I just knew you go to college and you get a job, So I didn't even know what I fell into, but I just fell into it and I just really deeply fell in love, especially the community. I think when I got on Instagram back in the day, and this was when I started the agency side of things, the community, I had never been appreciated like the way my brain works. It's a little different, it definitely can think holistic, but then I zoom in and I love big picture stuff. And when it came to business strategy, most people in my everyday life did not care at all what I was interested in. But man, when I went on Instagram, I just had a flock of followers that were obsessed and they wanted to hear what I was thinking about. They genuinely wanted to listen and have these back and forth conversations. And they had so many questions that expanded my brain. And it was this community that really saw me and like saw parts of me that I always thought were the dorky, nerd, weird parts of me. And they just loved it. And I think that's what really sucked me into the entrepreneurship space. It's like, oh, these are my people. And then I just slippery slope down and here I am. There's no way I am ever going back.
How did your parents feel about this world that you were entering in, especially not people who were entrepreneurs who understood what that whole path was like?
I don't know. My family's not really a feeling talker family. I'm kind of the weirdo that loves to talk about feelings. I mean, you'll see me on my Instagram stories and I'm over here crying because of something I'm a very naturally vulnerable person. So I don't think they were too excited. I think they would have probably preferred me get a steady job that was dependable. I think there was a lot of like default to fear around what I was doing. They didn't understand it. They didn't really want to understand it. And that's okay. That's not a big deal. It's not like they weren't supportive, but they were neutral. Neutral, but afraid. And there was no way that it was like a safe space to talk about what I was doing because it would just be, and not in a negative way at all, just kind of the way it is. Like everyone defaults to different types of thinking.
Exactly. It's a lot of unknown, right?
Yeah, a lot of unknown.
So, I mean, fashion blogger to where you're at today, there's quite the gap there. You've
Yeah.
probably had a lot of evolutions getting to where you are. So, I'd love to hear, based on your journey, what have been your biggest lessons?
Oh my goodness gracious. So many mistakes made, so many lessons learned. Okay, well, let's see. I'm going to like zoom in into a specific era. I would say when I was going from that like $12 in my business bank account to 36,000 a month in 6 months. I think what I did really well was I didn't think. The second I started thinking was the second I started declining. And what I mean by that, it's not like I don't think, right? But what I mean by that is there was no overthinking. It was just when you feel like you're doing something and energy is just pushing you in that direction, it might be in the form of curiosity, it might be in the form of just what you're passionate about, or you get an idea in your head, but it's some form of energy. I'm a big quantum physics nerd, so just like some variation of energy. At that point, in that moment, I simply just let energy flow. I didn't overthink. Now, when I reached that 500,000 point, I started getting suggestions from other people. And I was very open and receptive. And I didn't know how to filter at all because I was new to this. I was new to the money. I was new to learning how to protect myself inside of the business community. And not that it's all bad or scary at all. It's just you do need to know how to navigate it, and you got to make mistakes while you navigate. And so I had friends at the time that stole curriculum and IP. I would just like get logins and then block me. I had a stalker slash hacker that hacked into my Instagram and deleted my entire social media when we hit over 1 million. Who's now in jail. She's in jail, not over that, but over something else. She was a scam artist in the industry. So it was just a lot of crazy things. But then the advice that was coming to me was you need an integrator, you need an ops manager, or you need to hire and delegate everything out. You need to do all this. And great advice, but blanket advice without context, variables, and a structure, a proven structure in place can be dangerous. And that is also why I don't give blanket advice to people. I don't, if someone's like, what should I do? It's like, well, there's 20 follow up questions I have for you in order to give you a really well thought out intentional answer, because I have been given unsolicited advice that has really led me to make some, oh goodness, very expensive mistakes. And so one of my mistakes at that time was I'm too stupid to grow a business to the multi-million dollar level, because I was the stupid one in the in my family. My family, oh my gosh, you're so smart. But I'm a different kind of smart. I wasn't the type of smart they were. Like, they're just like registered geniuses over there. And I think everyone has genius in them. It just looks very, very different. But I attached it to I can only be smart if I look like that. And so that was a belief in my head, just a belief, you know. And now I'm totally past this. This was years ago. But in that specific example, I hired someone that, I mean, they were charging, oh my gosh, an insane amount of money. I think I was paying 70 to $100,000 a year for someone working 10 hours a week managing my business. And we had a 60-70% profit margin at that time. Within 3 months, we were in the negative. I lost over $40,000 in 3 months, in 1 month, like in a 30-day period. We had lost over 40, because yeah, and I needed to learn that expensive mistake to show myself, oh, I can do this. I can do this. I think there's a lot of us that, I mean, not to get on the whole women train, but especially as women, I think men get pumped up a little bit more. Men definitely have their downsides of just like the lack of emotional, like, encouragement. You know, there's with everything, gender and genderless, but with women, I think I grew up in a very conservative Christian Southern environment that thankfully I'm not in anymore. But in that, it was, we were told like women can only do these things. We're very limited. We are meant to be birthing babies. We are meant to be serving our husbands. Our only worth is if we're married, cleaning, cooking. That is it. And so when I was indoctrinated with that mindset going into business, that's why I loved it so much, because this industry doesn't have that outlook at all. It was like women don't have a ceiling. Like, we get to decide what our ceiling is. Some people's lower, some people's higher, but it's based off self-awareness, not based off of society limiting you. And I loved that, but there was also the mindset part of it. We're like, well, I have been told my entire life that this. So that was something that I had to outgrow, and I had to learn that expensive mistake to do that. Long answer. That's my answer to your question.
I love that. That's something that I learned as well, is there is so much advice out there. And what I've kind of realized is that there's no like right answer for you. You know what I mean? Like, there's no one person out there that's going to give you that one secret thing, because what's worked for them may not necessarily, it's so individualized. Every business is like relatively unique, right? Because everybody is running their own way and whatnot, and having, their services their own way and whatnot. But that was something that I learned a little bit the hard way, is like I invested way too much and took way too much stock in what other people said I had to do versus what I felt I needed to do in my own business, and what worked for me and how I wanted to run my business and what I actually wanted out of my business and what the future to look like. And, it kind of took me off path a little bit, but eventually made its way back. Yeah, it can be overwhelming for sure. Let's talk about generating wealth. So this is something that I see you talk about a lot, is wealth and profit, and, generating wealth versus making money. And that's just it. Can you elaborate on the difference and your approach to it?
Yeah, there's a huge difference. So I would say the main difference is that generating wealth is where your assets make you money, but those assets do not require you. They might benefit from you, but they do not require you. And I'll give a specific example a little bit later. And then making money is okay, your business, right? Direct input creates direct output. So you create an evergreen funnel and you're getting traffic into that evergreen funnel and it's creating revenue for you. Awesome. So that is great and that is making money. But what if the market shifts and your evergreen funnel doesn't work anymore and you just don't want to create a new one? Okay, let's say that's the scenario. Now you are no longer making money. So that is tied to your business strategy. That's tied to your business input. It's tied to all these things. There is nothing wrong with that at all whatsoever. It is I love it. It's so creative, but when it comes to actually being wealthy, it's like you can get rich off of making money, but rich is temporary. It's not long term, it's short term. It's a short term money. You have money. Now, being wealthy means that you will always have money. And so, what I mean by that is, okay, I'll give you a specific example. So, I had a business that was making over 6 million a year, right? I was profiting maybe like 2.8 to 3.4 million. Okay. Where's that money? It is not in a portfolio because I did not know any of that at the time. Oh my gosh, let's see, I'm 29 now. So I was like 25, 26 or something when I hit 6 million or something. I now my best friend is my wealth manager. But I didn't have that at the time. I was not around the network. I was in my mid 20s. And so I didn't know what to do with that profit. I didn't know how to invest strategically. And so when you get into the wealth space, that is where you can put your money in, let's say, a bucket, and that bucket puts your money to work and it grows your money to the point where you can start getting dividend paychecks from it. So it looks like real estate, it looks like investing in a portfolio, or it looks like an equity contract. And an equity contract is actually a better way to say that would just be a business partnership. That would probably be a non legal jargony way of saying that. So let's make this tangible. I'll tell you exactly, like, kind of a little bit like what my wealth. So my wealth, I have a commercial and residential real estate property. So my commercial property, it's managed by someone else. I don't touch it, don't get any text messages, calls, anything. I do have to do the taxes every year. Like, that is where I am looking at the numbers every month and stuff like that, but I'm not involved in the management, right? So my commercial building, I am making a profit anywhere from $5,000 to $6,000 a month of profit on that building. Okay. Now, my residential property, I'm making a $500 a month profit off that residential property because neither mortgage is paid off, because one of our mortgages is a 4% and our other mortgage is below 5%. I'm getting probably way too technical here, but I'm just going to go down this rabbit hole real quick. The average rate of money growth in a portfolio is around 8%. So if my interest rate with a loan is below that, I do not pay it off. Otherwise, I'm actually losing money. But we don't have to get into all that. I just want to quickly add a note in case you want to be a nerd like me. Okay, now getting back to that. So I have a real estate, right? That is constantly going. I'm making mailbox money off of that. Okay. Then I have a tiny private equity firm. That private equity firm, like this month, I made $120,000 from the private equity firm. Now, that is through me going in and making business deals. So I have sold my IP in several different ways. I have licensing deals through the private equity firm. I go in and I'll get, let's say, 50% of a business, right? And then I get 30% of their profit. Or another deal that I have is I get no equity, but I get 10% of the revenue for the first 10 years of the business. And we have these different benchmarks they have to hit. And this is what has been given to them in return, right? So those are some of those deals in that private equity firm that I do. I keep those deals small. I do not open it up to just everybody and anybody, but really they're former clients that I trust, because that is what I have learned. I've learned my lesson. I've made a lot of mistakes there too on who I have worked with. That's super important. But anyways, yeah, that's the private equity firm. So that's $120,000 that I have really done nothing for this month specifically, except manage like the deal. So it's probably like 4 to 5 hours of work this month total. So it's not like I've done nothing because I have fulfilled the contracts. Okay, now we go into Portfolio. Okay. So then we have the portfolio, and this is just investing in stocks. So when it comes to stocks, I am a long term player, not a short term player. Now, I'm not someone to give advice on stocks at all. I did actually used to be involved with owning part of a wealth firm that was a part of the private equity. I learned a ton from that, but I'm a big long term person. Anyone that says anything within a year, or like honestly, like 5 years or less, I just do not trust. I'm like a red flag all over it. So what I like to do is I like to say, okay, I want to make $10,000 a month from my portfolio. So what I'm going to say is, well, every 1 million I have in my portfolio, I know on average I can get about $2,500 a month from. Okay. So if I want 10K, I need 4 million in my portfolio. Okay. Well, I know that one of my businesses in the tiny private equity firm is going to sell for 10 million within 5 years. So I'll probably get about 3.8 after taxes. Boom, I put that in there. I get 10 grand a month for the rest of my life, and it keeps increasing. You see how I did that math super quick? That is how I think about wealth when it comes to that. And and that's also like playing on a pretty big-ish level. You don't have to play that big. This is just what it looks like for me. I just wanted to give some examples so I'm not just going surface level education here. But my business that I have with Katie, it is a playground. It is a passion project. It is like a more of a mission that's coming from my heart. It's like I want to help entrepreneurs get to the place that they want to get to. It might not be everything I just said, right? Some people, yes, but other people, they just want to make 500,000 with a high profit margin and coast with because they're not sucked into their business every day. Awesome. Let's get you there. That is I really like business being a moneymaker, yes, but not the primary moneymaker. Okay, I hope that answered the question.
Yes, definitely. That gives a wider picture as to what you can do with that money once you get to a certain level in your business, and you don't have to just strictly rely on that to continue. You know what I mean? Like your money can work for you rather than you constantly working to generate it. And it kind of just gives that phased approach to being an entrepreneur. So once you get to a certain level, this is like the next steps that you would then take with the money that you make from your business, which I love. Now let's talk about getting to that place where you can start using that money to build your wealth. Now, I've heard you make mention of, visionary, strategist, scientist modes when you are scaling a business. Could you elaborate on what these modes are and how they contribute to that revenue growth?
Yeah. I think that when you're at the beginning, you're just in Bob the Builder mode, you know? Like you have that artist in you. Like Bob the Builder, you don't have a construction hat on. You have like a bunch of paintbrushes, but you're still Bob the Builder at the end of the day. You're still a construction worker. It's just a little bit more of your artistic expression. And what I see people get caught up here is perfectionism, it's overthinking. And so if you can get past those two things and just turn your brain off and trust, awesome. That a lot of people can't even get past that part. So you got the builder mode. Then you kind of switch into, I would say vision and scientist kind of toggle, but I prefer to go straight into scientist mode. That's where I default to. So scientist mode is, let's make sure that what we're building is now a machine that can run without me. And it's not that when I say that, what I don't want anyone to interpret that as is, okay, I'm going to put my peace sign up and ghost the business and the balloons go up. Every time I put number two, I don't know if you guys have that setting on your computer where the balloons go if
I've
you have.
never seen that before.
I know it's crazy.
That's
Anyway,
awesome.
but every time you kind of get to this point, I really want to make sure that your business can run almost like an assembly line machine, and it does not need you for your client or your customer to be successful. It doesn't mean that you don't exist. It doesn't mean you're not there. It just means that you're not required. And that's the difference, because if you're required, you can never lead your business. You will always be the manager and the doer of your business. That's not a bad thing at the beginning. That's a good thing at the beginning. You want to know all the ins and outs. I think a lot of people villainize the doing and managing of the business. And, some people just genuinely want to stay there. And that's all self-awareness, right? It doesn't always mean a comfort zone thing. No, not everyone wants to get into the leader part of the business. That's okay. That is okay. Just do what feels good for you. At the end of the day, I just want you making the amount of money you want to make. And I want to make sure that you're aware of, if you want to make this much money, this is the kind of machine you need to make. I think what a lot of people also, they kind of like tag this in their mind, tie, that's the word I was looking for. They tie these two together is, if I make more money, I'm going to be more involved in the business. And the reason why they believe that and think that, because I will say, when I was making 3 to 6 million, that was the least involved I have ever been in my business. And that mainly because I was in the hospital. But for like a year and a half, like in and out, but my business ran itself. When I was below 1 million, oh my gosh, that's a completely different story. I was testing, I was figuring out what was working because I didn't have a coach, I didn't hire anyone. So it just, a lot of trial and error. But going back to what you tie it to, your business as it stands today probably requires a lot from you. I've been doing a lot of market research lately, and I've just been hearing just a ton of people say how much their business keeps them busy. And yeah, if you grow your revenue, if you keep your business the way it is built today, oh, absolutely. It's not scalable. It would break. It would either break your mental health or it would break the business itself. It's not sustainable. And so I think it's not a matter of growing your revenue. It's a matter that your brain can't expand enough to see how your business could be built differently. So if revenue grows, your time decreases. And that's the issue we want to tackle instead of the issue of just growing revenue. So it doesn't grow your time. But yeah, those are the modes. And those modes really help you shift through those transitions.
I love that. And I 100% agree with you. Almost, I mean, so many people that I've talked to recently after last year, which apparently was a nightmare year for so many business owners, have actually scaled back their business and they're back on the ground, the boots on the ground, doing all the things. I let go of all my team. I'm back on the ground doing all of the things. And, it's hard to separate the idea of taking yourself out of the day to day so much so that you can actually lead the business when you've been so used to being in the weeds constantly. And I think that that's where people get tripped up in taking that business to the next level is, freeing themselves up, trusting that they have the team and the structure and the infrastructure and whatnot in place to support them being able to do so.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about your new business, which totally intrigues me. Funnels is not my area of expertise. I'm more of the back end operations and whatnot. So the whole marketing aspect totally eludes me and fascinates me. But I want to kind of learn more about this double funnel and what you're building and what you're currently working on releasing out to your client base.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I have a new business partner now. Before, a lot of people knew my name and connected it to recurring profit, and it was just me, no business partner, and I loved that. But I came back in the industry with a business partner for a specific reason. She's very innovative. She pushes my thinking, which is just a breath of fresh. She's just a breath of fresh air, honestly. And I just am very excited to build this new brand with her and what she's bringing to the table in terms of the way she thinks about things. It's it really got me excited about business again. I think I just needed to take a break and do some healing work. And when I came back, I was like, man, I really miss feeling that excitement around business. And she got me feeling that way. And one of the things that we wanted to tackle together was the fact that funnels weren't converting like they used to. And it was a major problem. And we saw this, like, funnels were flopping, flailing, and failing in 2023. Funnels that used to work and convert a crazy amount just weren't working anymore. Why? What happened? And what's going to work? And so we created a marketing lab together at the end of 2023 to say, okay, what's going to work in this environment moving forward in 2024 so everyone can be set up for success. And so what we realized was that a lot of people were relying on a 1 to 2 sales touch point system. So webinars, challenges, video series, right? Like those are some big ones. And it meant that if someone does not engage in that specific part of your funnel, they don't buy because they're not primed to buy. It relies on that one part of their funnel to prime them to increase the conversion rate. And I used to teach webinar funnels. Like I was big on that, and we still see people are my RP students converting. But I tell them, and like based off the data that we're seeing, is that it's a decline in engaging with a webinar that is more than 45 minutes long on evergreen, just because of the industry. And so it's important, because the way that I built that old funnel was, if you watched the webinar, you would buy. Like the conversion rate was so freaking high for a cold audience, but that's the problem now. The engagement rate has decreased. And so really what we had to figure out was, it's not that people are not going through funnels, it's that people are not buying in funnels. Why? So then that's where we fix the problem. So we have two funnels. There's the plug and pay funnel and there's the double funnel. So the plug and pay funnel is the first 7 days, and there's a 4-point touch system on it. So when you come in, you're getting a microcast on a 2-scroll sales page with a ready client converter. And so the microcast, think about a profitable podcast episode that someone can listen to on the go, but it's in visual format. Like you can watch it on video. Like it's your favorite profitable podcast episode that converts like crazy for you, but visual. And people can watch it anytime, right? And it's typically less than 25 minutes long. And so we're seeing that convert like crazy. One of our test subjects had a 6, which by the way, industry average right now, I mean, well below 2%, but like we're seeing lower than 1%. And we weren't seeing that unless you were a high ticket offer to cold leads. We would see like 0.5% back in the day, right? But it was fine if you had high ticket. We're seeing that on programs that are less than $500 now, because yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And that's why businesses are failing and flailing or flopping. And you're like, it sucks. It really sucks being in that position. So anyways, moving forward, that is why we created what we did. And another thing is sales calls and DMs. Like people don't want to do that. Like we have kids, or we have lives, we have friends, we have a life. And especially after COVID, I think a lot of us just decided, you know what? We want to have a multi-tiered life where we're not just obsessed with our career all the time. We want to enjoy being a plant mom or a dog mom or a kid mom, right? Like we want to enjoy things that fulfill us outside of our career, but we also want a thriving, successful career at the same time. We just want that balance. And that's why we created the Ready Client Converter, to replace that need for the DM conversation and sales call, which is great. So it's basically like an automated flow of videos based on how they interact with it. It engages them in a way that sells them for you without them having to get on a sales call and DM. So anyways, that's the first part of the funnel. Now you have the double funnel, which is on the back end. So for those leads that do not convert in 7 days, that's where the double funnel comes in, which is basically a 6 to 9 month cycle. So let's say you have 100 leads coming in at the beginning of a plug and pay funnel. Okay. Let's say you have a 5% conversion rate and your offer is $1,000. Okay. Well, that means that for that 100 leads, you've made $5,000, right? Awesome. Great. So we've made that money. You have 95 leads that are still signed up. Like, what are we going to do with them? So this is where the double funnel comes in. What we have seen with our data is that per 100 leads, your revenue will increase by 30%. Based off of what you made originally. And so that's why it is so important. People do not have this automated system on the back end. And real quick to round this out, This is also why I believe it is so freaking important to have an automated sales system, because instead of your energy being split in these multiple directions, or relying on a cash injection, you have an automated sales system that's working for you 24/7, and your energy is just focused on traffic, which there are also parts that you can automate of that as well, depending on your strengths and self awareness, right? So, it just makes business easier. It's like, why make business harder than it needs to be? Business can just feel like a fun game if you genuinely want it to feel that way.
I freaking love this. You simplified it because in my head, like when I was thinking of building out a funnel, I was like, I have to freaking create like an hour and a half long friggin' webinar video type thing that I really just don't feel like creating, to be honest. And then I have to put it out there, and then I have to do sales calls, which I'm sorry, but in this like year, they're all ghosting. And I take time to prepare for my sales calls. I will research your business. I will like go through your questionnaire. I will prepare for that sales call. And to have you ghost, I'm just like, I'm like, I don't want to do it anymore, or I'm going to charge for it because it is my time that I'm investing. So I'm like, this is just not working. This is just not how I want to be spending my time. And I like how you're approaching it. You know, it doesn't have to be a super long webinar or video, or, you know, a live podcast where it's a video type thing. And, you know, having it all kind of automated on the back end to just bring them through this cycle. And I love how you're also focusing part of it on the people that haven't purchased, because just because they didn't purchase now doesn't mean that you should just drop them from your list type thing and not nurture them, because they could just take a little bit more time, or maybe that offer wasn't what they needed and they're going to go into your high ticket offer, you know, when it's like the right time for them. Like, you never know what's going to happen. So that's just such a great approach. I love that. When is this like releasing? I know you're doing it to the beta
Oh,
list right
yes, I
now.
forgot to mention that. I'm so focused on the strategy. Sorry, guys. If you would like to join, our next round is on April 1st. And right now, like, we didn't even have a name when we released for beta at all. We called it the Nameless Pro, or actually, our clients called it the Nameless Program. They're like, hey, can we get the link to the Nameless Program? Because we just knew what we wanted to create. We didn't really plan a business around it. And so, what we're calling it right now is Scaling on Autopilot. We are using an old domain of mine, thedisruptor.com, right now. It's not even the business name. It's just an old domain we're attaching to this so people can have access to it. So if you go to thedisruptor.com, you will see the page and it'll be a breakdown of the entire funnel. There's a video on there that will be super helpful. It breaks down every single component of that funnel so you can kind of see, and then the information. It's a $500 deposit to reserve your spot, and our next spots open on April 1st. Definitely come join us. It is going to be a lot of funnel critiques, like live funnel critiques on your funnel. We're really wanting to get just higher conversions this year so businesses can get out of that funk. But yeah, there's that. And then it will be open after that. I just don't have a ton of details. We're just focusing on beta and April 1st round right now. But my Instagram is at Haley Burkhead. So if you have any questions, just DM me. Like, if you're listening to this, like, let's say 3 to 4 months from now, and you want to say, is this open? Can I buy? Just DM me, because I don't know where the links are going to be. So that's kind of the best answer I can give you.
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, so the name might change down the road. So definitely reach out directly to Haley if you are listening to this later down the road from when the podcast releases. I kind of want to talk about you selling your business. Now, I mean, working with Hannah, she's talked a lot about, you know, you can continue running your business or you could sell it. And I'm just like, how do you even know if you want to sell it? Like, is this something that people just know right off the bat? Like, what are the pros and cons of each? Like, at what point do you realize this is what you want to do, and then you want to start brand new on another business? Like, what exactly is that whole process, and what it's been for you?
Well, you'll know. You won't know at the beginning. You won't know when you first start the business. Sometimes people do, but you usually don't. So for me, I sold the IP in several different ways, through licensing deals, through revenue shares, through profit shares, mainly through revenue shares. Like, I'll get about anywhere from 2 to 500 grand a year for the next 7 years with that. But the reason why is because I didn't want to sell my email list. I didn't want to sell the brand. I didn't want to sell like just there are certain components that I'm going to make millions and millions off of that I would actually lose out on if I sold the entire business as an entity. That was really big for me. I did have an offer for 7 million, but I turned it down because first of all, it was a ClickFunnels dude. And I just, whenever you just have a gut instinct, you're like, I do not trust this guy. And I would have trusted that guy with my audience. And it just felt wrong. And so I turned down the offer. And I'm so glad I did. I don't think I would have been able to sleep at night if I would have accepted that offer. I would have felt like a sellout for the wrong reasons, not good reasons. I just deeply care about my community, and they gave me the email list. I don't know, it just felt wrong. So, anyways, but back to the strategy portion of it, I did sell my IP, so I'm making money that way. But in my private equity firm, there is an agency. Well, actually, there's multiple, but there's one specific agency that we are on track to selling for 10 million. So in that way, I'm using the assets that I did not sell to actually boost the revenue, and then we have like this whole share. But let's get into that agency because we are selling the entire entity. It is going to be a faceless agency. So the very first trek to I forget the revenue and profit mark. I think the profit mark is 2 to 3 million. We're using their face to sell, right? But then as soon that last 1 million of profit, we're going to spend that last 1 year or two doing a brand cleanup, which means we're reverting her face out of everything. We're making the agency brand the brand, and we're just changing the way everything looks like on the appearance, and we're heavily just really drilling down on the data. And so when you pitch something to sell, you're going to create kind of like a pitch deck, obviously, right? And you have to think, how are you going to position your business? So this business, it's going to be retention. A big one is going to be, here's the retention. We do not have, like, people are not going to want to buy a business that just has a few big clients, right? They want to see a bunch of small to medium clients that are spending on a recurring basis, that have a high retention and aren't buying just because it's you. If they're buying the business profit margin itself. Now, you could be selling. Okay, there's another business I'm involved in, media company. Okay, so this media company, they are wanting a bigger media company or an education company to buy them out because they're wanting their assets to be bought out, not the brand. Because they know that if someone buys their assets for $20 million, right, they're going to end up making 200 million from that 20 million sell because of the size of their assets. But that person now gets to cash that 20 million, whatever that post-tax profit is after they pay their taxes on the buyout, that goes in their portfolio. They live off of that. Now they're set. They can go write their books, they can go retire, they can go do whatever. So that is kind of the way to think about it when you think about business buyouts. But I will say, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my gosh, this sounds overwhelming, this sounds too stressful, it's not meant for you. If it sounds exciting, if you're curious about it, maybe let's explore. But if your nervous system or your heart or your body is at all putting up any resistance to what I just said, don't worry about it. Because if you're not excited about it, probably not the best path to go down. It doesn't make you less of an entrepreneur. I think that is some parts of this convo in the industry where I think is ridiculous. You have a lifestyle business. So you either have a lifestyle business or you have a business you want to sell. And there's no right or wrong answer. I've had the lifestyle business. You can make millions of profit every single year, cash out in a portfolio and be retired in 5 years if you want, honestly, or you can go sell your business. There's no right or wrong answer here.
I had no idea that you can actually break it apart and keep the brand, keep your email list and whatnot, and just sell like certain components of it. Like just knowing that there's options around how you can sell your business and, what you can keep and what you can actually like part with. That's really interesting.
Oh, you can sell your components multiple times too. I have,
Wow.
yeah. I mean, I have some. So we actually am just talking to someone right now that's going to take old IP from that business and put it in a different market that has a different language that I never entered because I only speak English. And so now they're going to go dominate the market and I get a revenue share, right, of that. So like that is in discussion right now. There are those kind of just creative solutions that you don't think of, or they either come to you or you think of, but don't worry about it being the right answer. If it's meant to be, it truly will be, because just I think what I would focus on more so is just always be creative and always be curious and never let yourself say the word should. Like, oh, well, I should sell it this way, or well, it has to be done this way. The second your mind starts going in those directions, you start putting up boxes and barriers to your future success. And so that's, I guess that would be like my only rule.
Gotcha. Okay. I like that. Now, as an investor in businesses, I would love to hear from you because I've been I've been hearing a lot more about people looking for capital or looking for angel investors, things like that. And I'd love to know from somebody who has done this multiple times, what exactly are you looking for in a business when you're investing? What criteria are you looking for?
I don't care about the business, I care about the person, mainly. I mean, I wanna know how you handle money. I think a lot of people do not handle money very well. I mean, that's a big one, but I don't see that as much until they start, like, really getting money. Values are big. What are their values? When they're burnt out, what is their immediate response? What do they do? Yeah, I mean, it's really the person itself. I've just worked with a wide variety of people. And also, what's the reasoning for the business? Like, do they do business to genuinely love the game of business? Or are they doing business because they just want an end result? And they're attaching all their worth to the end result, or they're attaching all their happiness to the end result. They're not happy right now, but they'll be happy when they get funded, when they get all this stuff. Huge red flags all over that. And so that's like one of my red flags. But also, if they're desperate for the money, that's another red flag too. Like, I actually go into most of my deals putting no money down. I'm like, I'm not giving you money, but I'm going to get, like, let's say 30% equity, and I'm going to give you what you need to get the business here. You're going to tell me where you want the business, and I'm going to give your business what it needs. I'm not going to give you what you think you want. I'm going to give your business what it actually needs in that moment based off of data. And if you understand that concept, you're the entrepreneur for me, because I know you're going to get where you say you're going to go. But if you're like, I need 100 grand, no, you don't. You need revenue. You don't need cash injection. You need money and you need profit. And can you do that without the cash injection? Not that you have to, but you can blow through $100,000 and make no revenue, and now your business is where, right? Like, I just huge red flags all over it. So I would say that's the big thing. Like, I'll give you a tangible example. So, like, I came into a business, it was 50-50 equity, and I brought them 500,000 in revenue within 6 months. And I just watched what she did with it. And it took her a year, and she stabilized. I mean, she's like, okay, profit margin dip, because she had to hire, she had to do all this stuff. And I just watched her. And it was amazing to watch her problem solve and figure it out. And she didn't ask for help a bunch. She didn't come to me. She didn't use me as a crutch. That's a big green flag. She didn't trust me over trusting herself. She trusted herself to figure it out. And I came in, I would fly up to her house and we'd go through things, and then I'd fly back and I'd let her figure it out. We would do that. And she, I mean, oh my gosh, but she's just brilliant. She's so, I mean, there's a reason why she's successful. It's just, she's an amazing person too. But that is like an example, is that business at that time needed revenue. So I brought the business revenue, and then I saw how she handled the revenue. And then when she handled it well, okay, now I bring you more revenue. Here's another 500,000 in revenue. And and then we'll see what the retention is. And then we'll say, okay, now let's bring you 1 million until we get to the point where we want to sell.
That's amazing. Okay. I love your approach to it because it's not just simply about the business. It definitely is about who's running the show and, all the work that they've probably done to get to the place where they're at, to be able to do so effectively and efficiently and level headed in a way, which kind of leads me into my next question. You've talked about nervous system, you've talked about, needing to do some work and stuff like that. Being an entrepreneur absolutely requires you to do the inner work. Like, that's just a non-negotiable. I've heard it a billion times, and I've also said it through my own journey. It's kind of more so a self-development journey than it is a strategy journey in a way. And I'd love to learn from you, like, what your experience has been, because I mean, there's seasons of development that is required. I'm in a very heavy one. Apparently, I started working with Gabrielle a little bit, which I know I heard your testimonial through her website, and I was like, holy crap, like, she did a 1 million on a sabbatical. And I'm sure that there was some work that you probably needed to do behind the scenes. But what has your experience been developing yourself to be able to be who you are today, and how you run businesses and how you support others?
Oh my gosh, I love Gabby. Oh, huge shout
Mm-hmm.
out to her. She is just a walking angel human being. Seriously. I love her and she is now one of my best friends. I just love her. Okay, so oh my gosh, healing journey. A lot of it was dissolving ego. A lot of it was dissolving ego. A lot of that fear. And so what I mean by ego was not like, oh, I think I'm better than everyone. Not like that kind of ego. So I mean, ego can be that for sure, but ego, the way I define it and the way I see it is any it attaches to things to make your identity stronger and position you as above something. And it might be like, I'm above this emotion, or like, I'm above this situation. It doesn't have to be another person, right? Or it can be another person. But and this is what I started figuring out about the ego is just the bodyguard of your inner child, and your inner child, it gets really scared easily. It's a child that's vulnerable. And there's so much with it, right? And so the ego like stands guard, like you're not gonna get past me. And so the ego projects a lot of fear, a lot of anger, a lot of shame, a lot of those kind of things. And it starts attaching to those situations. And so, oh, what year was it? I don't know. I was 26 when I got pregnant. And then I was 27 when I had my son. And that was a crazy time. I did not want to be a mom, but my husband just really wanted to be a dad. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do this for him because he really wants to. And so we tried to get pregnant. And then I got really frustrated because I couldn't get pregnant. And then I had a miscarriage. I'm like, why is this taking so long? And so I viewed it as there's something, not that there's something wrong with me, but it was like, I'm not winning. Like, this is a game and I'm not winning, I'm losing. And that frustrated me. It's like in business, it's like, okay, I mean, I can win in business. There's a spreadsheet, there's data, there's this, like, I can be in scientist mode, right? But in like having a baby, it was different and it was frustrating me. So when I had a miscarriage, thankfully, that made me fertile enough to get pregnant with Keen, my son. And so pregnancy did not end up like I thought it was going to end up. I thought it was going to be normal. I'd only seen normal pregnancies. I had multiple rare diseases. One of them was HG, which basically just means you can't hold down food. You're throwing up every day, multiple times a day. You can't have enough fluids. You're on bed rest a ton throughout the whole pregnancy from crippling nausea. There's different variations of it, but I wasn't able to drive most of my pregnancy. I wasn't able to walk. So my pregnancy, I was paralyzed. I was in a wheelchair from the waist down, just different things like that. And so 4 months into my pregnancy, I get into the doctor's office. And up until this point, they had told me the pregnancy is only affecting your health, not the baby's health. So, okay, we can, think I'm dying, but like, okay. And then they said you're gonna have like you're potentially gonna have a stillborn, and there's a chance of this. At first, they thought it was a special needs child, and then they came back in the room, and that's when they said we need to start preparing for a stillborn. We're going to start preventing this situation. We're going to start doing all this stuff. And oh my gosh, I just remember in that moment, and I just broke down crying. And I just thought, my body is not working. Like I was so mad at my body because why was it doing this? And but at that moment, I knew that I wanted to keep that child alive. It was like my mom instincts kicked in like no other. Whereas before, I was like, if I stop being pregnant because something happens, that might be a little bit of relief because I mean, there were moments where I was just on the couch and it felt like my organs were shutting down in my body because I had not had food in days and I couldn't even hold down an ice cube. So I was just miserable. And honestly, I don't know, trigger warning needs to come with this, but my hormones were just that I got suicidal during pregnancy, and my husband really was helping me through that too. And not that it was like an action oriented, it was just the darkness that was surrounding my mind during that time. And I do think it was a lot of the disease too that was, I mean, it was very isolating. And all of my friends at that time just cut me off. And so I didn't have friends. I had one friend that I had met at a resort that I went to and I only met once in person for a few hours. And she was the only person that came and visited me. Not even, not even my team. Who was it local to me? Like literally no one came and visited me. No one texted me. It was so isolating. And I realized, wow, I don't have real friends. So at the same time I'm going through all this, I'm also realizing I just have a bunch of fake friendships that only cared about me because they wanted my business. Like they wanted to they liked me when I was successful in business and I was in business mode. They liked that side of me, but they didn't like me. Like they didn't care about me on all sides of me. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's what I realized was all my friends were just in the industry. I didn't have actual friends that were like friends of Haley Burkhead outside of not the Instagram person, not the business success person, the one that's on the magazine, none of that. Just Haley Burkhead, the pregnant person who's really scared right now. That person didn't have a friend. And so when the whole like stillborn thing happened, not stillborn thing happened, stillborn news happened. Sorry, I need to specify that. I just went into problem solving mode. I was like, okay, this is my situation. And I just did so much research and we got through it, thankfully. The birth was a freaking nightmare. It was like being trapped in a torture chamber, honestly. But at the end of the day, he's alive. That's what matters. But I mean, let me tell you how quickly they sliced me open. Okay. They chopped one of my nerves during my, like, kind of like at the very top of my right leg. And so, I mean, and the amount of pain I was in, guys, I mean, it would be like I would walk, and if that nerve, there was any swelling on it, I mean, my knees were so bloody because I would just drop in the shower. I couldn't shower. I couldn't walk. And I thought I was going to be independent after pregnancy. And then my independence was still taken away from me because I had to heal a nerve. And it took 2.5 years for the nerve to heal. It said 6 weeks on Google. That's a lot. 2.5 years. I haven't gotten nerve pain in about 2 months though, so that's a huge win, huge win. But it was just excruciating. I so many hospital visits while he was in the NICU. I was just screaming in pain in and out of the ER because of my nerve, and it was so intense. And there were so many moments and still are that I'm like, my son is going to die tomorrow, because your brain just still thinks we weren't meant to be together in this world, like there was something that the doctors are telling you he's going to be taken away, he's going to be taken away, and you just start kind of feeling that in your body. And so that is a lot of the work that I did with Gabby, with my ego, was okay, I need to release what's keeping me afraid. And being that victim, oh, my ego wanted to be a victim. I mean, that was the biggest thing that I had to heal through was you are not a victim of life. And So I actually became Buddhist during this time, and it was very helpful. And by become Buddhist, I say that very loosely. I wouldn't say that I'm very open to like everything because I believe really the answer is like the love is energy. But I love the philosophy of Buddhism. And with that, there's, oh, I forget all the remembrances, but there's these things called five remembrances. And one of them is you and everyone you love will get sick and die. And I know that's like a really whew thing to say, but it just punched me in the face. And it's like, yeah, who do I think I am? Like, who do I think I am to be able to get through this life and be completely unscathed? Like, that is so entitled of me, right? And so I just had to look myself in the mirror and go, yeah, like things happen. That's okay. You're going to get through them. Like you could have died. Your son could have died. You didn't. Just be grateful. Like it sucks. Let's heal through what sucked about it. But we don't need to be a victim to it because life happens to everyone. You're not the only one going through things. And that was helpful. Okay. I know that was a long answer, but that was my honest answer.
That, I mean, we could have a whole other podcast episode on that alone, but I cannot imagine having gone through that. Like I know you're supposed to look at the blessing or like, the silver lining and, who it's made you today. And, it was your healing journey that you need to go through after that. But holy Hannah, you are like next level strength. Wow. Like I almost broke down just hearing the story. So like, yeah, mothers are like superheroes to me. I don't know how you guys
Oh,
do it. I don't know how you guys like birth a child alone and then have to raise a child afterwards. Like the whole emotional journey of it. And then when you add the complexities of health issues and things that you can't even control, like you just kind of have to like release yourself from all these ideas that you had about what it was going to be like bringing a child into the world. And even in your case, going into it not wanting to be a mother right off the bat, but doing it for your partner and then having to experience that. I can't imagine what you've had to do healing wise to let go of, I'm assuming, emotions there, because I would be fucking pissed. To be honest, I would like hold it against him for a little bit of time. So that that's quite the journey, I must say.
Oh, but it's so funny because now, I mean, I love being a mom. And when he was a newborn, our son, Creed was like, I don't know if I can do this. And so it's almost swapped. I mean, also because like he was doing everything and I was the one that was still on bed rest. I like he was doing all the night shift and stuff. But and then he was the one that we had to switch over for the mental health things. But I think everything just works out the way it really is meant to. And honestly, there was a lot of ego involved in not wanting a kid. Now, for some people, that's not the case. This is just for me specifically. Is I thought a kid was going to affect my business in a negative way, and I was like, nope, I love being a successful business owner. And my ego attached to that identity and was like, if a baby threatens that identity, absolutely not. I mean, I was in my young 20s, so I just refused. And it was all ego because now I realize, oh my gosh, I'm like way more successful, and it's way easier with a kid because the way that I've set it up. But it's all mindset and ego.
Absolutely. Yeah, a lot of people do tie themselves to the business and not wanting any distractions or anything that could do it. But I've seen you, Hannah's doing it, like so many people are doing it. And you can do it both, right? It's just the way you manage your time and the way that you take care of yourself. And like, you don't have to invest all of your time in your business for it to be super successful. You know what I mean? Like you can have a healthy harmony between the two.
Yeah, and it's typically better when you don't either. Like when you set up your business to require that amount of time,
Yeah,
usually the
absolutely.
sign of a weaker business.
Well, I've absolutely loved this conversation. Now, we've talked about how you support your community with Katie, but is there any other way that people can work with you or potentially work with you in the future? Are you looking to open up, coaching or like any kind of mentorship or anything like that?
I do some consulting, but just DM me on Instagram if you're interested in consulting. If you're interested in having Katie and I help build out that funnel, we install the tech for you too for free. If you're interested in any of that, just DM me or just say, hey, this is what I want my business to be. What are my options? Just do that, because at this current time, this business is so new. We might have an offer or we might not, but it might inspire an offer, or I can work one-on-one with you. But I do think that just going to @Haley Burkhead on Instagram and just shooting me a message is the best way right now.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time for sharing your journey, your incredible expertise, and all that you've done, but also this very vulnerable moment that you've had in your life. I know a lot of people are going to resonate with that and be inspired by all that you've gone through and where you're at today. So thank you so much for joining and for sharing.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. Your presence truly elevates Love Unplugged into a home for freedom-driven women who aspire to be visionary CEOs. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd be honored if you'd take a moment to rate and review the show. Your feedback helps us bring more impactful conversations to our community. Let's continue to grow this empowering community together. Until next time.